So good news, guys. We got played by the Democratic Party once again. Um, just saw this. Don't know how I didn't see it, but Democratic Party delegates reject marijuana legalization amendment to 2020 policy platform. Let's see how they did it. The Democratic National Committee's Platform Committee on Monday rejected an amendment calling on the party to support marijuana legalization as an official 2020 policy plank. Several delegates testified in favor of the proposal, arguing that legalization and ending the war on drugs will help resolve racial inequalities and stimulate the economy. But following discussion of the measure, it was shot down in a 50 to 106 vote, with three abstentions. The panel opted to keep the language included in a draft platform that was released last week. The document calls for decriminalizing cannabis possession, automatic expungements of prior marijuana convictions, federal rescheduling through executive action, legalizing medical cannabis, and allowing states to set their own laws. Like presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden, it stopped short of endorsing adult use legalization. The language very closely echoes recommendations released earlier this month by Criminal Justice Reform Task Force that Joe Biden and former primary rival Senator Sanders organized. Quote, "We cannot ignore the fact that the current marijuana criminalization policy has, in too many cases, has been used to target people of color. Then why don't you do anything about it?" Unquote. I'm sorry. Delegate Dennis Adusky, who introduced the amendment, said they are unfairly and disproportionately 6 times more likely to be arrested than other citizens. Iowa County Supervisor Stacey Walker, who served as a member of the Biden-Sanders Criminal Justice Task Force, testified in support of the proposal, stating that black people are over-policed and brutalized over the same trace amounts of marijuana that white kids in this country are using without fear or repercussion or consequence. I'm imploring all of you to approach this with an open mind and heart. Do something big here, he said. Take one small but meaningful step towards changing the course of history. If my black life matters to you, you will consider this amendment. We will want to get in good trouble today, and I urge you to do the right thing to support it. Louisiana Senator Cleo Fields, Democrat, testified that he felt the existing platform proposal already represents ambitious agenda and opposed the legalization amendment. He said delegates should respect the efforts of our unity task force that produced it by retaining its current form. Bakari Sellers, an attorney and former South Carolina lawmaker, spoke in favor of the measure. I understand that sometimes these efforts we have to stand in headwinds, and sometimes we may feel as if we don't go far enough, he said. But I think Democrats should support efforts like Marijuana Justice Act that remove marijuana from the Controlled Substance Act and regulate marijuana in a manner similar to alcohol and impose the federal excise tax on marijuana. I think we should actually have to do something about the problem to unravel mass incarceration, he said. I think that it's strictly unfair that when I represent a young black kid for trafficking marijuana in South Carolina, where his criminal offenses are stacked one after another, and there are white boys in Colorado and California making $1 billion off of it. I just see inherent unfairness of that. I stand in favor of legalizing marijuana, he concluded. I stand in favor of doing what's right by unraveling mass incarceration and investing those dollars in black and brown communities that were disproportionately affected by the war on drugs. And while the measure was defeated and did receive more favorable votes than a proposal for the party to support Medicare for all as part of its 2020 platform, here's part of the draft plan that the platform committee approved. Democrats will decriminalize marijuana use and reschedule it through executive action on the federal level. We will support legalization of medical marijuana and believe states should be able to make their own decisions about recreational use. bullshit. The Justice Department should not launch federal prosecutions of conduct that is legal at the state level. All past criminal convictions for cannabis use should be automatically expunged. Substance use disorders are diseases, not crimes. Democrats believe no one should be in prison solely because they use drugs, the draft document states. If that's the case, then why don't you want to legalize it on the federal level? They're talking about only giving it to states. Well, I'm sick of the states' right bullshit, because states have also oppressed their people with their right to their 10th Amendment. And it's like, if it's a law, if it's a law that's clearly unjust, why the hell they're such corrupt assholes? But I'm gonna keep going. Substance use disorders are diseases, not crimes. Democrats believe no one should be in prison solely because they use drugs, the draft document states, and rather than involving criminal justice system, Democrats support increased use of drug courts, harm reduction interventions, and treatment diversion programs for those struggling with substance use disorders. The DNC in 2016 similarly adopted a plank asserting that the states should be laboratories of democracy on the issue of marijuana, and those seats that want to decriminalize marijuana should be able to do so. But it also seems more open to broader changes, stating that the party supports reforming our laws to allow legal marijuana businesses to exist without uncertainty. The party explicitly stated that the earlier document that there should be a reasoned pathway for future legalization, or we can do it now. How about that? This year's platform doesn't say anything about taking steps to broader cannabis legalization and makes no mention of the marijuana industry. Beyond cannabis, the drafting committee included a provision that argues it is past time to end a failed war on drugs, which has imprisoned millions of Americans, disproportionately people of color, and hasn't been effective in reducing drug use. Democrats support policies that will reorient our public safety approach toward prevention and away from over-policing, including by making evidence-based investments in jobs, housing, education, and the arts that will make our nation fairer, freer, and more prosperous, it says. The platform will formally be approved by delegates at the Democratic National Convention next month. Earlier in this committee meeting, another delegate gave emotional testimony, shaming the body for proposing draft policy planks that she said fall short of the progressive ideas to which they should aspire. The party should back the Breath Act, activist and Black Lives Matter co-founder Pertissi Colors said, referring to a wide-ranging proposal that includes provisions to decriminalize drugs, expunge prior drug convictions, and to fund the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, among other forms. Hell yeah. Pertissi Colors says, I'm first paying tribute to Representative John Lewis by speaking the truth and telling our story, honoring his legacy, compels us to change the course of history. It's time for the Breath Act, an agenda of how black people in America can not only survive but thrive. And that's what she tweeted. This is just them reiterating her tweets. Color cited provisions of the proposal text in which has not yet been released that call for ending federal grants to provide local police with militarized equipment and abolishing DEA and other law enforcement agencies. Until and unless our leaders become signatory to the Breath Act, the Democratic Party of today will be remembered as the party of complicity, the party that refused to sacrifice its own comforts and material securities to ensure it walked the walk, she said. Before you leave today, I want you to answer this question for yourself. Which side of history is my party actually on? Which side of history am I actually on? If you're not careful, the Democratic Party will miss its greatest opportunity to lead our country to the true American Revolution, she said. Valerie Alexander, another delegate, said in the meeting that the party's existing platform will end the failed war on drugs, which has imprisoned millions of Americans and disproportionately people of color and hasn't been effective in reducing drug use. So, basically, the Democratic Party wants to keep the status quo. They want to keep the status quo because it makes them money. This is what the left and the right do all the time, guys. They pretend to give us a choice. Come to find out, we have no choice. And turns out they're all getting paid by the same people. They're all doing the bidding of the same people. They're doing the bidding of the lobbyists, the private prison complex, the military-industrial complex, Saudi Arabia, Israel, the powers that be, basically. The powers that be. Now, I find it extremely funny when rightists, libertarians, whoever, they like to call people like Joe Biden a radical leftist. Now, here's the problem with that, okay? Joseph Biden is not a communist, is not a socialist, not even a leftist. Y'all really need to learn your political spectrum because you sound very stupid when you call Joseph Biden a leftist. You know what a leftist is for? Medicare for all, free college, universal daycare, Social Security for all or UBI, ending homelessness. I'm trying to think of another one. I think I said free college. But these are left-wing ideas. Medicare for all, free college, universal daycare, Social Security expansion. Things that we need. Things that we need desperately. And we've been getting lip service from Democratic politicians and the Democratic Party forever. And what people need to really understand is that spectrum-wise, the Democratic Party is a moderate Republican Party. And then the Republican Party is just a straight-up, much more far right-wing party. These ideologies, although somewhat in the same aisle, are not the same. But they're the same enough to where both of these parties have decided to go against the American people and have decided that the status quo is much more important because, oh my God, the lip service that we're getting right now is completely absurd. Because they're over here telling us that they want to end the failed war on drugs. But you guys heard in that article, they want the states to decide recreational use. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this is an open and shut case. The war on drugs is unconstitutional. It should have never been implemented to begin with. Okay, it's unconstitutional. And it's not even enough that it's constitutional. Guys, it doesn't work. Drug usage has not declined. Cocaine usage has declined, but there's no correlation between that and the war on drugs. Okay? We have spent over $1 trillion on the war on drugs. And nothing has been done. All we've done is separate families, eradicate black and brown communities, and in 2018, we arrested over 1.6 million people for drug possession alone, with over 660,000, a little over 660,000 being for marijuana alone. That's more than half of those drug possession arrests in 2018. Now, they are right. I forget who brought it up in the article, but They talked about abolishing the Drug Enforcement Agency, as we should. The Drug Enforcement Agency is clearly unconstitutional, is clearly designed thereof for the war on drugs. You know, we don't need any unconstitutional agencies. There's no need for that agency. So, yes, it needs to be abolished. And we need to replace it with things, with programs like harm reduction programs. And the reason why we have to do that is because they work. And the reason why we know they work is because we've seen it in Portugal, and we've seen it in Switzerland, where in Portugal half of their heroin users have declined by half, and then their drug usage, STD cases, teenage usage have all declined since they decriminalized all drugs. Now we have to legalize all drugs, because the difference between legalization and decriminalization is decriminalization, you get a fine and they confiscate your shit. Okay, legalization, you know, just like alcohol, just like cigarettes, right there for you. You can get it at a 7-Eleven. You can get it at a Walgreens. You know, they talk about states' rights. I'm all for states' rights, but when they use their right to oppress people's liberty, specifically their Fourth and Ninth Amendment right, which that is what the war on drugs is violating, I'm not for it. Okay, I never understood the conservative libertarian idea that it's okay for the states to oppress people, but it's not okay for the feds to. Okay, we need to do what we can constitutionally to get all this shit legalized, or at least decriminalized, which that doesn't go far enough for me. But at least decriminalization. We need to do it constitutionally. I agree with that. And if the executive order is not constitutional, it shouldn't be a thing. Should executive orders even be a thing? I'm on the fence about that. But Joe Biden and the Democratic Party, they are not a leftist party, folks. These people are authoritarians. The GOP and the Democratic Party have been in bed together forever. They've been screwing the American people over for 150 years. And nobody has seemed to catch on. They want to vote in Donald Trump and Joseph Biden, two rapists and two war criminals. And it's just getting sad at this point. You know, even Biden supporters are saying, hey, you know what? He did all this stuff, but he's better than Trump. Which, okay, so then your bar isn't as raised as a Trump supporter's bar, is it? If you're willing to give up your principles. Like, if you really care about Medicare for all, universal college, universal college, universal daycare, UBI, things like that, then you're not voting for somebody like Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a moderate Republican. He loves his tough on crime bill. He has no regrets with his tough on crime bill. He loves that he drafted it. He still wants marijuana illegal. Okay, he still wants to lock people up for drugs, which tells me and any logical, critical thinker that he hasn't learned jack shit. The Democratic Party hasn't learned jack shit. They love to do this whole lip service about how the war on drugs is bad. You guys don't even want to legalize it recreationally on the federal level, if we can, which you can to some degree. Maybe not all the way, you can. I don't understand how people like Joe Biden are considered leftists when they don't want Medicare for all. They don't want to legalize marijuana. They don't want to end the wars. They don't want to cancel student loan debt. They don't want to end homelessness. These people are not for you. They're for the powers that be. Okay, this is why this election is such a joke, man. You got two war criminals and rapists going against each other, and nobody seems to give a shit about the fact that both of them have been caught lying. Both of their actions Trump as president and Biden as VP, they've been abysmal, man. They've been abysmal. Anybody who thinks critically, anybody who isn't a hack, can tell these people are just scumbags who just want the status quo, who has no problem sleeping at night knowing they're bombing Muslim children with fucking drones. Like, these are the same people that are spying on us unwarrantedly since 2007, guys. And you honestly think somebody like Joe Biden's going to give you Medicare for all? You honestly think somebody like Donald Trump really gives a shit about nationalism or keeping the country safe? No. Guys, it's all about this. Okay? As Americans, at this point in time, we have a duty. We have a duty to spread the word. We have a duty to spread their records. We have a duty to make them feel uncomfortable. Because, guys, this is a joke. 50 to 106. How much money did those people get off the books, do you think? America deserves Biden and Trump. You guys don't get your shit together. I mean, guys, there's literally... The Democratic Party has no plans for you. The Democratic Party has no plans for you, doesn't have no plans for anybody in this country. They're not moving to the left. Unless you're moving libertarian, unless you're moving to the left, what good are you? Man, we all have, half of the country had such high hopes for people like Trump. And to see him just lie his way through the past 3 years, just literally just bullshit his way through the whole time. The fact that you guys nominated Joe Biden, bro. You guys nominated Joe Biden. Like, that is so annoying, dude. Like, that just tells me nobody gives a shit about actual policy. If you really give a shit about Medicare for all, why the hell are you voting for him? Why aren't you voting for a third party or not voting at all? We deserve this shit, guys. We deserve Biden and Trump. And until we get it together, I don't want to hear anybody bitching.